New information on an Alabama church shooting that's left 2 people dead, what we're learning about the investigation. And the Golden State in San Francisco. And a deadly DUI crash that killed a Salinas mother. Now, 2 years later, prosecutors are set to formally charge a suspect in court.
Coverage you can count on. This is KSBW Action News 8.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ariana Hasso. Leading our news this midday, a court appearance for a Carmel man accused in connection with a DUI crash that killed a Salinas mother back in 2019. According to investigators, 21-year-old Jacques Clark was one of 2 people in the car when it rear-ended 38-year-old Rosie Figueroa. She was killed in the crash, and her mother, who was in the passenger seat, was seriously hurt. Clark was arrested shortly after the accident, but prosecutors originally dropped the case after Clark's DNA was found on the passenger side airbag. The other person in his car, Tyrone Moore, was never arrested in the case. Now, more than 2 years later, the DA's office is charging Clark for violations of a state law that says the registered owner of a car involved in a fatal crash may be charged with a felony if they were riding as a passenger and failed to intervene. Clark is set to be formally arraigned on those charges today. And in San Francisco, preparations are underway for the Warriors' victory parade. The Golden State took the NBA title in Game 6 of the finals in Boston last night. Now, a celebration is set for Monday in the city. Here's a video from their parade, their last parade in Oakland back in 2018. This year's parade is expected to be much the same, with confetti and thousands of fans lining the route. The Warriors' victory parade starts at 11:20 Monday morning and will follow Market Street from Main to 6th Street. And in Gilroy, a group hoping to recall Councilwoman Rebecca Armendariz had their petition approved by city leaders. Now they can start collecting signatures for a recall election. Armendariz has come under fire after she allegedly helped her son host a Halloween party that turned deadly when the 2 people died after gunfire erupted. The recall effort has until October 12th to gather more than 6,200 valid signatures from registered voters. Also in Gilroy, officials say routine water quality testing found high levels of nitrates. It was measured at 12 milligrams per liter, which is 2 milligrams higher than the acceptable amount. The water came from a city well at Gilman Road and Camino Arroyo. City officials don't know the cause. They say the well has been taken offline. The city will continue to test the water and won't be brought back online until approved by State Water Resources Board. And state regulators are fining PG&E and other utility companies more than $22 million for what they call poorly executed widespread power shutoffs 2 years ago. Regulators say in more than 24 planned power shutoffs in 2020, they found multiple public safety violations, as well as violations when it came to requiring people to be notified. The shutoffs were designed to deactivate power lines to keep them from sparking fires during hot, dry, and windy conditions. Power lines have been blamed for about half of the most destructive wildfires in the state history. And in an effort to prevent more wildfires, PG&E is working on a project to bury those thousands of miles of power lines. The utility says this year it will bury 175 miles in Central and Northern California at a cost of $3.75 million per mile. And Lyft has agreed to a $25 million settlement with shareholders after being accused of hiding safety problems. The security suit was filed because investors accused the rideshare company of not disclosing reports of Lyft drivers assaulting female passengers because the omissions of possible assault came before its initial public offering. Lyft was accused of trying to appear more socially responsible than its rival Uber. The settlement agreement is pending approval by a federal judge in Northern California. Lyft continues to deny the allegations and has not responded to a request for comment. And CAL FIRE is working a prescribed burn in San Benito County. They say smoke may be visible in the Gavilan Mountains over the next 2 days. In all, they plan to burn 36 acres to prevent future wildfires just west of Piscinas. The agency says smoke may be visible for several days. We're one step closer to getting the nation's youngest kids access to COVID-19 vaccinations. It's been a long process, but on Friday, the Food and Drug Administration officially approved emergency use for Moderna and Pfizer vaccines for kids at least 6 months old. The move still needs approval from the CDC. That's supposed to happen Saturday. It's expected to pass as CDC Director Rochelle Walensky has already signed off on the recommendation. And new research says the Omicron variant is far less likely to cause long COVID symptoms compared to Delta. A UK study looked at 100,000 cases and found about 4.5% of people who tested positive for Omicron had COVID symptoms that lasted a month or longer. But people with the Delta variant were more than likely, twice as likely to face long-haul COVID. Long COVID symptoms include fatigue, brain fog, headaches, heart issues, and other health problems. The doctor in charge of the study says more research is needed and the risk of long-haul COVID remains, particularly for those who aren't vaccinated. Now to the crisis in Ukraine, where 2 U.S. veterans have been reported missing. The men had volunteered to join the effort against the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and now the State Department is saying a third American may also be missing. Here's reporter Molly Hunter in Ukraine.
The State Department says there are now unconfirmed reports of a third American missing in action over here in Ukraine. The State Department says, and again, they are not confirming the names, they're not confirming the whereabouts. They say their indication is that this third person, this third American, also came over to take up arms to fight alongside the Ukrainians, is their understanding. We have spoken